An NBA insider just gave us a wild Celtics update, attributing the Boston Celtics refurbishment in their roster to Jayson Tatum's injury, not due to the second apron. We talk about what he said and all the latest right here on Celtics Digest. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Jace Andrews. I appreciate you tuning in to today's show. Charles Barkley made some interesting comments about the Boston Celtics. Plus, we have an update on Jayson Tatum. We'll get that all to you here on today's show. Before that, we've noticed that over 70% of you who watch these videos, you're not subscribed yet. What are you waiting for? It's 100% free, first of all. Second of all, we got you covered throughout the entirety of the 2025-26 NBA season for the Boston Celtics, and it's seeming more and more likely that Jayson Tatum might be a part of that. So stick around to stay more about that. Let's talk about this offseason because it was a hard one, to say the least. I think it was tough for a lot of Celtics fans, including myself, knowing that 2024 roster, how good it was, and watching the pieces just kind of, be moved away. The trade for Anthony Simons and Jrue Holiday getting moved. Georges Niang coming and, getting rid of Kristaps Porziņģis. We now know that Niang is in Utah, and they continue to kind of figure out what to do and what the best moves are for the Boston Celtics. With all the moves that were being made, largely attributed to those moves were the second apron penalties. We all know that the CBA is, I'm going to call it blasphemy, but the second apron is pretty bad. There's some big penalties in that second apron. And so with that all being said, that seems to be the most likely option as to why the Celtics broke up this roster right now, right? Well, Charles Barkley seems to think that actually was not the main reason for the roster teardown. He said it wasn't due to the second apron. So I'm sure you're sitting there saying, okay, what in the world did he attribute it to? That's where we have to talk about it today. So we first start with a little bit of some backstory here from Connor Ryan of Boston.com. He says, quote, "The writing was on the wall. The Celtics had to augment a significant segment of their roster, due in large part to the hefty luxury tax penalties set to hit Boston." The second apron is no joke, guys. Let's be honest. The Boston Celtics are one of the richest franchises in all of professional sports. But the second apron and the way the CBA has it set up, that second apron is a large hit. And to do that year after year after year is definitely something to look at. And so Brad Stevens even came out. He said, listen, that's the reason, right? He said, quote, the second apron is why those trades happened. I think that those are pretty obvious, and the basketball penalties associated with those are real. We've all talked about that, end quote. And it's not just financials. There's other penalties assessed with it, and there's no reason to go into full details, but the second apron is not something you want to be under for a significant amount of time like the Celtics have done up until this point. I don't, however, believe that that's not the reason the Celtics broke up the roster. But Charles Barkley does. He says that no, that was not the reason the Celtics broke up the roster. So what does he say? Well, it goes to Jayson Tatum. He says, quote, "I don't really think that's it. I think they realized that without Jayson Tatum, they wasn't going to win a championship." Great grammar there. So it's best to break up the team up sooner rather than later, end quote. Okay, so let's start with this. I do not believe the Celtics broke up this roster early because Tatum was not going to be on the roster. I fully expect the Eastern Conference to be wide open and for the Celtics to have a legitimate shot with the roster they have right now. I think if you trade Anthony Simons, maybe there's a little bit more to talk about because his offensive presence is definitely something to be noted. But you also have the ability and the thought that Jayson Tatum could come back. Now, I think it's just kind of weird. Now, I get another quote from Connor Ryan. I don't have the attribution, but he says, quote, "I don't think it had anything to do with the second apron. They had the apron last year, right? So I just think they realized that they are going to take a step backwards," end quote. Once again there from Charles Barkley. I really don't think that is the reason. I truly look at this Celtics roster and say, listen, there was a lot of money. There was a lot of players. I'm going to say I really don't think they wanted to keep Kristaps Porziņģis for that much longer. I mean, I understand that he says, quote unquote, the illness that he was dealing with is gone with the Atlanta Hawks, but he had some sort of illness for legit a year. Jrue Holiday, there was concerns about his age. I'm not saying that this is the main reasons they traded him away. I think the second apron is obviously the biggest reason, but I find it intriguing though, because Barkley is a very informational mind. Like he knows a lot about the NBA. But does he not realize that the Celtics have a legitimate shot of having Jayson Tatum back this upcoming season? The assistant coach for the Boston Celtics, Sam Cassell, said, quote, he's coming. He's coming. Everybody's counting him out, and I don't know his plan for returning this season, but I like what I see so far, end quote. There's a little bit of a Twitter war, a Celtics fan war, kind of a civil war going on, talking about whether or not Jayson Tatum should keep posting these workout videos where, without the boot, he's shooting with the team and basically saying, I'm coming back. On one side of things, people are saying, I don't want to see that because it's not something that he needs to pressure himself into doing. On the other side of that, people are saying, no, he should keep posting that because it will put a little bit of fear into the Eastern Conference, knowing that if the Celtics can secure a 6 seed, I don't know a single seed above them that would want to play a 6 seed that just got Jayson Tatum. They wouldn't. So in that light, I think he should keep posting. That's my personal opinion, but it's really interesting. And there's also another update. Kendrick Perkins also truly believes the Celtics are going to be good even without Jayson Tatum. He said this today on NBA on ESPN, saying, quote, this team is going to be ready and they're going to be a force in the Eastern Conference until Jayson Tatum gets back. They're going to be a top 6 seed in the East. Hard to deny that. Hard to talk about that. The workaround with this season, talking about all the moves they made and, whether or not it was to get under the second apron or not, I think that this team is still in a good spot. And I truly, truly believe that it was not due to Jayson Tatum's injury. I think if Jayson Tatum does not get injured, this same thing happens. They still trade away Kristaps. They still trade away Jrue Holiday. Maybe they try and make it more of a competitive roster and they're willing to stay above the first apron, whereas all accounts right now are they're still trying to get under that first apron, which if you look at their cap space here, they still got about $4 million to go to get under that cap space. So we'll see if they actually get under there or not. But I truly think that this was fully just because it's time to get under. We had our 2 years. We tried. We went for back-to-back. We still believe we can compete in a very weak Eastern Conference, and now we're just going to have to do it in a different way. So I ask you the same question, Celtics fans. Do you think the Celtics were more worried about the second apron, and that's the reason they broke up the team, or do you think it was just because, they wanted to break the team up now instead of next year, given that Jayson Tatum was not going to play this season or at one point was not going to be a part of this year's roster? So I want you to let me know that down in the comments section. You've heard my opinion. I think this should be a pretty unanimous one. The Boston Celtics broke up this team due to the second apron. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They broke up this team because the money was not there, because the penalties, basketball-wise, money-wise, financially-wise, all that. It didn't make sense to do it again, and maybe there is a slight bit of that, a slight bit to say, why would we go over the second apron when we're not going to have Tatum for a decent amount of the year? Why would we do this if we're not going to have Tatum for a decent amount of the year? But it still attributes back to the second apron. It still attributes back to those penalties and those basketball and financial penalties you're going to get at that second apron the Celtics have already had to go through for the past year or so. It was time to break up the team. It stinks. But I'm very confused as to why Charles Barkley is saying this, because I trust his insider mind and kind of stuff he knows. But when you have a legit quote from Brad Stevens coming out and saying, hey, yeah, guess what? We did this because of the second apron. First sentence, the second apron is why those trades happened. I don't know what Charles Barkley's saying. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And do you think Jayson Tatum should play in this upcoming season? Do you think he should post more? Kind of weigh into the Celtics civil war that's going on right now on Twitter on whether or not Jayson Tatum should post more or post less. Let me know in the comment section down below. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time here on Celtics Digest. Peace out, guys.